Have you ever felt like God wasn't listening, or worse, that God had abandoned you? I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yes, you have. It's normal among the faithful to experience moments when God seems far distant. Many of the greatest writers throughout Christian history tell of moments when they felt utterly abandoned by God. So, if you've ever felt that way, you are in good company. Psalm 143 expresses this very sentiment, but with an interesting twist. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas. And this is your daily devotional for Thursday, September 26th, 2024. Psalm 143 reads like a classic plea to God for help, for deliverance from personal enemies. But it is classified as a penitential psalm, a psalm of confession of one's sins and asking for God's forgiveness. Verse 1 reads, "Hear my prayer, O Lord. Give ear to my supplications in your faithfulness. Answer me in your righteousness." Then if we jump to verse 3, we could easily see this as a classic plea for help. It reads, "For the enemy has pursued me, crushing my life to the ground, making me sit in darkness like those long dead." But verse 2 includes just a hint that this really is all about penitence. Let me read verses 1 to 3 all together. "Hear my prayer, O Lord. Give ear to my supplications in your faithfulness. Answer me in your righteousness. Do not enter into judgment with your servant, for no one living is righteous before you. For the enemy has pursued me, crushing my life to the ground, making me sit in darkness like those long dead." Apparently, it is the awareness of his own sin that haunts him and makes him feel distant from God. This is not the first time in the Psalms that we see this feeling expressed. Perhaps the classic psalm expressing this feeling is Psalm 32, which reads, "Happy are those whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Happy are those to whom the Lord imputes no iniquity, in whose spirit there is no deceit. While I kept silence, my body wasted away through my groaning all day long. For day and night your hand was heavy upon me. My strength was dried up as by the heat of summer. Then I acknowledged my sin to you, and I did not hide my iniquity. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgave the guilt of my sin." It is the recognition that sin and guilt have a way of alienating us from God. In Psalm 143, that sense of alienation is compounded by the attacks from personal enemies. So in this case, it's not only forgiveness the psalmist seeks, not only rescue from his own guilt, but also rescue from one's enemies. It dawns on me that this is exactly how many people approach God, and it puts us all in pretty good company. For how many of us have ignored our prayer life, only to find ourselves in a real jam, desperate for God's help? Then we pray earnestly to God, pleading for that help. And then we bargain. God, if you'll do this for me, then I'll, and you fill in the blank. But even before that, we often begin our prayer with a bit of confession. I know I haven't paid that much attention to you lately, or I know I don't deserve your help, but Psalm 143 sounds like this kind of prayer too, only dressed up in fancier clothes. And you know what that means? It means we're not the first ones to approach God sheepishly, asking for help when it is we ourselves who have been distant from God. Our prayer has actually made it into the Bible. Yes, it sounds more poetic coming from the psalmist's pen, but it is the same prayer anyway. All of which is to say, just because your prayer life hasn't been the best, don't hesitate to call on God when the chips are down. God's been listening to the likes of us for a very, very long time. Tomorrow, Psalm 88 expresses the prayer of one who is sick and feeling forgotten by their best friends. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.